You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Hi, you're listening to my mom, Georgia Edson, on iCannabisRadio.com.
Hi, welcome. It is Monday, April 29th, 2013. Holy cow. I just feel like a minute ago it was January, and now we are in full-on spring in Colorado, which means a snowstorm and some sleet and stuff, and then beautiful, sunshiny, gorgeous blue sky days, and then followed up by the requisite spring rain turning into snow, and then beautiful days, and then we have this wind thing that happens. So that's what spring in Colorado looks like. Chris and I were just talking about, I put my skis away this weekend, and it bums me out so much because, you know, I didn't get any ski closure this year. Normally, when you know it's the last day, you can be like, that's the last day, let's go all wild, and I got nothing. In fact, I'm still in my mind, even though I put my skis away, I still think that I'm going to go one more time, I think. But I'm not, because there's no time, because, did I mention it's April 29th? It's crazy. Ski areas have been closing all over the place, lots of ski areas. Last day was last week, a couple of them. It was a couple weeks ago, and then they reopened for a weekend because we got something like 30-something inches in a couple of days. So anyway, that's a very winded way of saying hi. Welcome to the show. I am in the studio with my favorite producer, Chris. What's up, favorite producer, Chris?
Hello.
Hello. And intern, Sam, who isn't really an intern anymore. Really, he's like a full-on producer. But I just, for the sake of just like a nickname, intern Sam is just cute.
I like it.
Yeah.
Or chives.
Or what?
Chives.
Chives?
No.
No.
Chives.
Some of my friends call me chives.
They do? How come? They call you chives.
I don't know.
Well, as soon as you figure out what that means, I'll decide if that's...
It's like a butler because I'm nice.
Chives?
No, chives.
But Chives is the butler.
That's
But they call you
right.
chives. Chives like the herb.
Yeah.
Well, that's I guess, funny. I guess.
Intern Sam.
Or we could just do Sam, which is your name, and that would make sense. My guest today is my dear brother, Bill Shengalis, who is the head of the U.S. Marijuana Party, and a whole bunch of other things. But we're going to talk a little bit about your recent trip to Washington, D.C., where you celebrated 420, and some things that are going on in the U.S. Marijuana Party this year. Some of the events that typically go on. We'll kind of walk through that, and maybe we'll dish a little dirt along the way too.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some news. I have all these papers, and I didn't put them in order. Normally, I try to put them in order so that I make some sense. So I apologize if I'm flipping papers. It's just that thing. It's just that thing. So in every blue sky, a little rain must fall. What's that saying? In every good day, a little rain must fall. There's some saying.
Right.
Does anyone know what that saying is?
And rain must fall.
Right. I got the rain must fall part. But it would have been really appropriate if I could remember exactly how it's phrased, because Amendment 64 has had some rain lately. It's been challenging enough to go through all of the regulatory rulemaking mumbo jumbo and the arguing and the lobbying and the political this and the political that, and this day this isn't happening, but this is, and the next day something changes, and all of those kinds of things are occurring. And we went through this with medical marijuana, so this isn't new or different. It's just a painful experience, and so an experience we have to have, an experience that I feel grateful that we are going through, because it means that Amendment 64 passed, and we are actually able to legalize marijuana, and people can buy it in stores and possess it and all those kinds of things. But nonetheless, the process, and I'm not as intimately involved in this legislative piece as I felt like I was during the task force meetings and the subgroup meetings and those kinds of things. But what has happened recently is not surprisingly, law enforcement has decided that they feel a little bit out of control with all of this, and God forbid the voters get their way, and God forbid the voters actually understand what they voted for and want to move forward with legal cannabis in Colorado. But law enforcement has taken it upon themselves to save people from themselves, and has said that they will write a letter to the federal government if we don't go ahead and pass some additional taxes on retail cannabis. They're gonna call mom on us. They're gonna tell on us. Because we couldn't possibly understand what it is that we voted for and what it means. And so unfortunately, it's put a monkey wrench into where 64 is going. And so the conversations in the legislature have been about what is reasonable tax and what that should look like. And it's been actually pretty interesting. In Bloomberg Business Week, there was an article on the 26th, about this very issue. Colorado and Washington try to figure out how to tax marijuana. It says it's been nearly 6 months since the voters in Washington and Colorado legalized marijuana for recreational use. The possibility that millions of dollars in tax revenue generated from pot sales could be used to do things like build schools was a big selling point in marijuana's advocates' campaigns. Absolutely, absolutely. But figuring out the actual tax benefits for marijuana sales isn't simple. The estimates have ranged widely. In Washington, one study projected the total sales, state and local tax revenue could reach $2 billion over 5 years. I can't even comprehend $2 billion in tax revenue. It makes me giddy. In Colorado, annual sales tax revenue have been estimated at $5 million to $60 million. But this week, a Colorado think tank, there's a think tank in Colorado, found that when the costs to enforce the new laws are taken into account, legalizing marijuana won't even pay for itself. And of course, they're taking a page from the playbook of medical marijuana and what a shit show that was in terms of licensing and not licensing and getting people to go ahead and put in their applications for a business, but not calling them in to pay their licensing fee. And why on earth would someone put in an application without also putting in the requisite fee? I mean, that's how you get the fee. Anyway, in both states, marijuana is being overseen by agencies that regulate alcohol, the Department of Revenue in Colorado and the Liquor Control Board in Washington. Today, the Colorado legislature is weighing a 30% tax on pot. This is on the 26th, so I have updated news for today, which would include a 15% sales tax and a 15% excise tax on growers. The first $40 million generated from the excise tax would be used to fund school construction. Revenue from the sales tax would pay for enforcement, and anything left over would be split between state and local coffers. Because Colorado's Taxpayer Bill of Rights, TABOR, requires that any new taxes get voter approval, the public will make the final call when it's put on the ballot this November. Now, I have openly talked about how much I hate TABOR. I mean, TABOR, in my estimation, is one of the most ridiculous, stupid things. And people, of course, voted for TABOR because they were thinking, well, of course I want to have a say on any single thing that, affects taxes and the budget and those kinds of things, not necessarily understanding the unintended consequences or the hidden consequences of TABOR. In Washington, the effective tax rate for consumers will be 44%. 44%. While producers and retailers will each pay a 25% tax, both states will also collect business licenses and insurance fees. Projecting the economic impact of putting marijuana on the market involves a lot of guesswork. Researchers have had to ballpark the number of future customers, the quantity they will buy, and whether their buying patterns will change over the time after what they call the wow factor wears off. And I've kind of said that too. I mean, someone who doesn't necessarily smoke very often may just get really excited about just going into a store and buying a pre-roll. I mean, that kind of thing there is a wow factor. There is a cool factor. And that person may never, ever purchase again, or that person may purchase, once a month for the rest of their lives. Who knows? But there really isn't a way to outline what that wow factor would be. and how that's going to affect the generated tax revenues. So having said that, some medical pot businesses have managed to be very profitable while others have flopped, and marijuana sellers must be prepared for the possibility, though remote, that the feds will come in and shut them down, since the Department of Justice still considers selling marijuana a violation of federal drug laws. So every single article has to have that, oh, by the way, Big Brother may still decide that you can't play. And at this point, I don't want to poke the bear, but I feel like that's kind of unlikely. I do think that did you just poke the bear?
I poked Mama Bear. Oh my
I know,
goodness.
right? I know. It
I'm all
was.
sweaty and,
Are you leaving me?
Yeah, for a minute.
Okay.
Maybe smokes.
Okay. Are you coming back?
Maybe for a second.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Tim's eye is bothering him. But this is a real concern. This tax issue is a real concern. And in fact, Mason Tvert now from MPP, but as part of the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol campaign, sent an email to the entire list for the campaign, the email list for the campaign, saying, "We achieved an amazing victory last November when 55% of Coloradans voted in favor of Amendment 64, making marijuana legal for adults in the state. Now this entire victory could be taken away from us, and we need to take action immediately. There are members of the state legislature poised to make Amendment 64's fate dependent upon a vote on a 15% special sales tax on non-medical marijuana, a tax rate that is needed to fund a regulation of the system. They're so hungry for tax dollars." And it goes on to say that the campaign would support a 10% tax, but that a 15% tax is too much. And Democrats and Republicans in the Colorado General Assembly differ on this. The Democrats say, oh, people will absolutely be so happy to pay their taxes. No problem. Whatever it is, we're down with that. We'll go ahead and tax, and people will still buy it, and it's not a big deal. And Republicans are actually saying, surprisingly enough, we know how often when tax increases are put out to the general public, how often they vote them down, no matter what the cause is, and no matter what the party that's going to benefit, the benefiting party is, that people just typically their first reaction is to say no to tax increases. And so this needs to be something reasonable, more like a 10% tax, so that it has a chance of passing, and that we're not increasing the possibility of the black market taking over again. So that was kind of today's big response was that.
What about Smart Colorado?
Oh, Smart Colorado. Gosh, they're not so smart. They're thinly veiled desire to educate people and make sure that we're saving our children is just it's lovely. It's lovely. So it's going to be up on the ballot in November, and really if a reasonable tax doesn't pass, then our law enforcement, who is it just me? Am I the only one that thought law enforcement was supposed to enforce our laws and help keep us safe, as opposed to dictate how we run our lives? I mean, I thought that they were supposed to support what we put in place, not decide. And so this whole idea of we're gonna write a letter to the feds saying, get rid of it, and if the taxes don't pass, there are a group of legislators who will put forward a bill that would repeal Amendment 64 because it won't pay for itself. And we know what happened with medical marijuana, and we know how to avoid that. So to me, it's less about whatever this tax looks like and more about the government agencies utilizing that money properly and not issuing licenses and allowing and taking applications without also taking those requisite fees. It doesn't seem really complicated to me, but then I'm not a government employee, and so the world is probably a lot clearer because I can see things clearly, and I'm not jaded by by whatever happens as soon as you become a government employee, that you no longer have common sense and you no longer are able to think logically and you have to think politically and all those kinds of things. So we'll keep you posted on that. We'll see. I mean, it's something that's going to happen in November, but I think that it's going to be reasonable, and I think that we will pass sort of what makes sense. I was going to look really quick, and I didn't get a chance to, at what the taxes are on tobacco, because they're outrageous. And a pack of cigarettes costs, a ton of money as far as I'm concerned for what you get, and a lot of that is taxes, and people still buy tobacco, and there's nothing redeeming about that product at all. Nothing. Zero. Zip. So, all right.
Yeah, when I was in the service, on a Class 6 card, and you didn't pay any state or federal or local taxes, and a pack of cigarettes was 11 cents.
Isn't that crazy? It's not 11 cents anymore, even without state and whatever taxes.
Well, I realize that too.
It's far from 11 cents, right?
It was only 11 cents, but cigarettes then I think were $1.34 a pack.
Wow.
So down,
So that much of it was
right.
taxed. That's yeah. Wow. It's that time for us to take a break. Right after this break, we are going to talk to Bill. We're going to take a little left turn and talk about some fun stuff and hear about Bill's trip to the 420 rally in Washington, D.C. You're listening to iCannabis Radio. My name's Georgia, and we'll be right back.
The law offices of Edson, Mayton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
High up in the Rockies is beautiful Frisco, Colorado. Medical Marijuana of the Rockies is a medical marijuana center with compassion for Colorado's medical patients. Looking for great meds grown organically in soil? You've come to the right place. Medical Marijuana of the Rockies is just off I-70 at exit 203. Check them out at the web at www.mmrockies.com. Their ever-changing strain and clone selection is updated on the website daily. When making a trip to the mountains, no matter the season, stop by Medical Marijuana of the Rockies. Make sure you say you heard about them on iCannabis Radio. You can call 970-668-MEDS to get more information. Medical Marijuana of the Rockies, your mountain source for meds.
The National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
Hi, welcome back. Hi. See you later, alligator. As promised, we have Bill Shangalis, who is joining us from downtown Denver. So tell us a little bit about you and about the party, and then we can talk about D.C.
Well, I'm Wayward Bill.
Wayward Bill on Facebook.
Yep, and into the world, I guess. I'm chairman of the United States Marijuana Party. I've been fighting for cannabis basically all my adult life since I was 18. I'm now 62, and been active, more active since basically the last Democratic convention here in Denver, where I had an epiphany to choose one activism because I was doing paralegaling for ACLU and on their speakers bureau, and and I had plenty of time to support every other thing from the environment to human rights. And my epiphany was I needed to pick something that I could complete in my lifetime, so I chose cannabis.
Nice.
And within that, since 2008, I'd always supported it all my life. I was an activist when I was 18, more so for cannabis than anything else then. But along the way, you pick up other interests in politics. But the thing is, it since 2008, I've managed to go from a drone to being chairman of the United States Marijuana Party, that I actually get out and speak to the public, and trying to choose a different venue as opposed to Denver anymore.
And why is that?
Because we've done our work here.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of work to do. You just talked about A64 and the taxation. That's a real big thing. I mean, they're gonna basically, it will be 30% tax, and that's a big issue because you got to run it by the voters because of Tabor. And people are going to go, well, it's pot tax, and I don't care, because
Right.
I don't smoke it, and it will probably pass. But it's erroneous in the fact that isn't what the voters asked for. They asked for a 10% tax. And, I don't know where they're getting this information on how much it's going to cost to enforce it. But you know what? The Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division squandered hundreds of thousands of dollars by buying vehicles they never needed, office equipment they never needed, and luxury furniture. So let's look at them and do. I can't remember the government agency that audits money, but they need to be audited, and they need to be held accountable for what they're doing with the taxpayers' money.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that that's a piece of it. I think that
Right.
they assumed that they were going to get a lot more money, a lot more revenue, those kinds of things. But they did things. I mean, their current office was the most expensive rental space that they looked at. The most expensive rental space that they looked at. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Who does that when looking for their own rental space? I think I'm going to absolutely buy the most expensive or rent the most expensive space. Oh, well, maybe you do that if it's your own money. But when you're spending someone else's money, especially the taxpayers' money, you would think you would be a little bit more thoughtful about, it's not like it's a great office. It's not a particularly gorgeous office.
I always wondered about it geographically, if they chose it because of where they all lived. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay, let's get a place that's near our house. And I'm all for green, but I'm also all for saving green.
Right.
And and maybe we ought to look into that. Maybe that was a deciding factor. Okay, we all live out here in Jeffco.
Right. Well, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, but it's not that difficult to. I mean, we all live in a budget. It's.
Yeah, I mean, you have to expect your government to live in a budget too.
Right. So you decided because we've pretty much done the work that needed to get done in Colorado that you would go ahead and go to D.C.
And other places that I can stay here and talk to the choir every day of the week.
Right.
And what I saw go down, and then I've seen it over and over because I've been going to D.C. for 4 years now, and talking at various events. And what I see is the tourists stopping and listening to the cannabis oil stories, listening to what's going on in other states, listening to Moms for Marijuana. And taking an interest in what's going on at the rally, as opposed to, like I said, preaching to the choir here in Colorado.
Yep.
I mean, it's basically as long as I've lived in Colorado, we've been pushing for pot forever and getting our way. Starting with Laura Creho in 1992, even though it got voted down. But we tried for hemp in 1992 in this state. We legalized marijuana in the city and county of Denver in 2005 through SAFER, followed by Breckenridge and Nederland, both cities. We had 3 cities, and no other place in the country had 3 cities that had legalized marijuana. We did. Actually, we won the election in 1996 on medical marijuana. If it hadn't been for the Secretary of State's secretary squirreling, holding the pigeonholing, I should say, the actual petitions because they
Hiding signatures.
Hiding signatures,
Yep.
and they she died in 2000. They found her in her desk, and so we got to put it back on the ballot. But sure enough, in 2000, we got medical marijuana. Your husband was a leader on writing that law, and Colorado has always been on the forefront for that. I think it has a lot to do with demographics in this state. There's only 5,100,000 people here. I've based my the U.S. Marijuana Party's cannabis habitation on that, and inviting people to move this state so that we can swing the politics and actually do some actual cannabis reform that sets a precedent nationwide. And I see that happening. I see people moving here every day now because they want, as Rob Corey says, they want green freedom. And I'm all for green freedom. I think everybody should have green freedom.
That's right. That's right. So tell us about your trip to D.C.
Okay, my trip to D.C. We basically did the 420 rally there. We had various speakers. I did the opening speech. I spoke about what 420 was, about the Waldos up in Marin and about them looking for the Coast Guard pot patch, and basically the history of 420. Later in the day, I did the 420 countdown, and I did various character roles of things that people have handed me over the last few years, hats and stuff. And I was the weed pimp. I was the grower in California. I was everybody. I was the patient, and presented it that way. But ending each thing that and they're still going to jail. And it was a fun speech to give. They missed somebody had the wrong time, and so I had to fill in 5 minutes to get to 420. So I did a lot of David Peel in the Lower East Side singing marijuana and getting the audience that way. But they helped me out. They were all clapping, and also we had 4 arrests that day. They were basically juveniles, younger people. And they just didn't know that you don't smoke pot across the street from Barry's house.
Right, right.
It's a no-no in D.C. We were able to secretively take care of any patient in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
So that they didn't have to leave the park to go medicate, and that was important. The only thing that they had to do was go pee, but they didn't have to go all the way back to their vehicles and take care of themselves. And you can thank the people here in Colorado for that. They donated.
So, what was the turnout like?
Our turnout was, I would say, between 200 to 150 neophytes.
Yeah.
But with the tourists walking by, and this is the most important thing that I see in rallying in D.C. as opposed to rallying, in places where it's pot friendly and you don't get a good walk by crowd, but you're right there at the White House.
Yeah.
And you have hundreds, if not thousands, of tourists walking by almost every moment, and Rebecca Forbes, God bless her, she was the MC, and she told cannabis oil stories in between all the acts and speakers.
Good.
And people were stopping and listening, that they were hearing the message that cannabis cures cancer, that this oil is a miracle unto itself. And and I spoke a little on just basically hemp as saving the planet. 8% of growing 8% of the farmland in hemp, that we can make all the oil that we need for a year for this, for our country.
Right.
Besides creating jobs at home, and not supporting the OPEC and different things. But we'll see what happens in the future here. D.C. is a very good place to hold rallies. and you got to pick where you want to hold them. Lafayette Park, even with all its security, is probably the best place in the world to get an actual audience that has just never heard.
Nice. We're going to take a quick break, and
Okay.
when we come back, you can talk a little bit about what's next.
Okay.
You're listening to iCannabis Radio. My name's Georgia. We'll be back in a minute.
Whether you are a commercial grower or cultivate as a hobby, No Dough Urban Garden Supply is Denver's first stop for your hydroponic grow needs. With a wide range of products including House and Garden, Botanicare, and Fox Farm, their knowledgeable staff can get you started on your first garden or help you with your well-established business. No Dough Urban Garden Supply is located in downtown Denver at 1330 27th Street, 4 blocks north of Coors Field near MMD of Colorado. They are open 6 days a week from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call 303-296-3424 or visit them on the web at www.nodoughurbangardensupply.com.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding, Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
Hi, you're listening to my mom, Georgia Edson, on iCannabisradio.com.
Hi, welcome back. I feel like every time I hear Gavin do one of those bumpers that I'm like, gosh, I know that he just redid this one. He sounds, I don't know, so much like a baby compared to, that was like, what, Chris, you did that a month ago maybe? That new one? Maybe a little bit longer? About a month ago? And he sounds like a big boy now, and that he sounds like a little baby. So we can never change it because I always want him to sound like my little baby.
And that brings me up to this child endangerment bill.
Yeah.
You're letting your son make a cannabis commercial, and according to this bill, that's kind of working towards the illegal or illicit, as they say. You're pandering your kid. I
don't know what they would say, but I know what I would say.
Yeah, I know.
I would say this whole freedom of speech thing.
That's right. And I agree with you. But it's a very touchy bill. This new child endangerment bill, because nobody knows if it's actually a little better than what's on the books and protects a patient or the recreational user now.
Well, they do have to show, the new thing that is really important is they do have to show how it's endangering the child as opposed to its very presence is endangering. The issue, of course, is that they haven't figured out what that means. What are the
what endangers a child?
Yeah, what are the factors that would lead someone to say that they've been endangered?
And they say imitation's the biggest flatter, even if you got your kids going.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a good thing. And it comes to parenting. I always believe that, they say marijuana is a gateway, but guess what? There's the gatekeepers, and if you want the gate closed, you got to be a good gatekeeper.
Well, and you got to be honest with your kid.
Too.
You've got to be honest with your kid, and the fact of the matter is that that kids don't understand. When they hear all of these different things about drugs, all drugs, they don't understand, why one person says one thing and someone else says something else. My stance is, it's not appropriate for kids. Not appropriate. I don't think alcohol is appropriate for children either. And so while I don't think that some of these substances in small amounts, marijuana, alcohol in small amounts, are harmful, I do think that minds who aren't wise enough to make good decisions on their own need to wait until they've developed some maturity and some wisdom and some life experiences before making some of those decisions.
Right, and then there's the rites of passage with your parents.
Right.
I can remember sitting down and having the first drink with my stepfather, and that was a rite of passage. And, he thought I was old enough to try it, and it was Applejack. He made his own Applejack out of cider, out of these apples that came from the deadfall off our tree in the backyard. But it, sat down and we talked, and, it's how, being a stepfather, it's one of the ways he got to know me too. Yeah.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about what are some of the upcoming events with the U.S. Marijuana Party?
With me and the U.S. Marijuana Party, I'm on my way to Hartford, Connecticut for their first ever global marijuana march. I am speaking and marching there. I'm going there to speak on behalf of Dana Beal, who founded the Global Marijuana March. He's in prison right now. I'll speak about his organization, Cures Not Wars, the history of the Global Marijuana March, a little about Yippee, and then about Ibogaine, because that was his passion. There's this pharmaceutical route out there that can basically cure all addiction.
Wow. So what's going on 4th of July?
4th of July, I will be in D.C. again, and this year, besides doing Lafayette Square, I am the parade marshal.
Nice.
So I get to lead the parade, and basically, it's all things cannabis is the theme. I have some fun ideas of how to dress my marshals and stuff. I'd like to put a little more zip into it than I've seen in the past. One of the things I know that, people have a tendency to bunch up when they march, and I'd like to get it spread out a little more so more people get to view it, because when it's small and going by, it's a little, it goes by quick. But if you have it spread out a little, the people that just came around the corner get to see it, whereas they might have not been there as it passed by when it was little. So I'm looking forward to doing that and hoping to have a little better organized march, and one that can get a message out.
How many people usually participate in the march?
In the march, actually, we probably get between 200 and 300 people.
Oh, wow.
And that's big, and a lot of people just come for the march. And then they go home, or they go wherever they go to watch the fireworks. Sure. Because and hopefully sequestering won't kill the fireworks this year. But, 1.25 million people come into D.C. just to see the fireworks.
Yep.
And they come in from all over the world. I mean, I come in from Colorado.
Right.
And I've watched the fireworks. And lots of times we're skedaddling out of there to beat the people to the metro station.
Right.
But this year I think we're going to be driving in, and it'll be a little different.
Well, that sounds very exciting. If people want more information about the U.S. Marijuana Party, how can they get that?
Okay, they can go to us on Facebook at U.S. Marijuana Party. They can go on the web to usmjparty.com or org. They can friend me on Facebook as Wayward Bill. They can follow the Colorado Party, the Maryland Party. They all have their own websites. Pennsylvania has a website. California has one. Idaho, which I'm very proud of. The chairman there is Sarah Frank, who is director for Moms for Marijuana International. We've kind of congealed with them, and that helps. I got the moms on my side.
Good, absolutely. It's a good group to have on your side.
And then we also have an Idaho party now too.
Excellent! Wow,
it's growing.
That's fantastic. And how does someone join the party? What do they need to do?
Basically, right now there's no fees. You can like us on Facebook. You can go to the website and join that way too. We do keep it a roster that way.
Excellent. Good.
And
all right.
And only your email address.
Only your email address, not your.
Yeah,
there's not going to be any
no
federal government oversight taking
right.
your information.
Just screen names.
Exactly. Anything else people should know about 420 in D.C. or anything about the party?
420 in D.C. We intend to be there next year. That one of the things I instituted as chairman of the U.S. Marijuana Party is the 48 to go movement.
Nice.
Basically the work is done here in Colorado, although obviously the work isn't done. It's being done for us, but unfortunately, but in Washington, I don't know how they're moving along, but there's still 48 other states out there, and I am behind it. The party are behind them. That we support. And that's just part of Overgrow the government too. That we are a unit. We are the U.S. Marijuana Party and Overgrow are unity groups that we stand behind recreational, medical, and commercial, i.e. hemp.
Yeah.
100%. That the only way that I see it is if we don't all support each other in those individual efforts, that we will not get what we want.
Well, and the world is changing. The world is changing pretty quickly. I mean, I just printed out an article from the Washington Free Beacon that medical marijuana dispensaries to open within view of the Capitol Dome.
That's right.
That Capital City Care medical marijuana dispensary with a prime view of Capitol Dome became the first clinic to obtain its license on April 22nd. Two others, Metropolitan Medical Center, located within walking distance of Federal Building in Eastern Market, and Tacoma Wellness Center in Tacoma Park, are expected to get licensed in the next couple of days. The federal government still considers it a Schedule I, of course, but the Obama. However, enforcement has been selective, and D.C. distributors to avoid the federal eye by keeping a low profile or staying within district regulations. A large portion of the planning that went into the D.C. medical marijuana program was the idea that Congress and the DEA could shut this program down at any given time, and the fact that it is in the DEA's backyard and Congress has budgetary oversight could interfere with the program that way. So the program was really designed to avoid drawing the ire of any of these people. Licensed marijuana cultivators are required to stay below the 99 plant threshold, the level at which federal mandatory minimum prison sentences kick in. The dispensaries have avoided opening up near schools, another federal prohibition. The program supporters say is restrictive. Patients must be diagnosed with HIV, AIDS, cancer, glaucoma, or MS in order to qualify. Nationally, what we've seen is that places that actually see a lot of interference are places where dispensaries exist in a sort of legal gray area, like Colorado and Montana. But places where there are really strict state regulations, and I think that D.C. can be counted as one of those, we haven't seen too much interference. So the dispensary is a 30-minute metro ride from Capitol Hill and located in a discrete building adorned with the Kabbalist symbol of protection. I mean, it's just pretty exciting that this center is going to open. They're licensed and they're going to open.
It is exciting for Washington, and I hope that the Capital City Care will join us in at 420 this year and consider part of owning a dispensary is supporting advocacy.
Absolutely.
And I hope that that the Capital City Care has put aside some money for that. We'd be happy to carry your banner through the global through the march in D.C. on the 4th of July. I don't have time for you to send it to me for Hartford, but we'd like you to join us for the 4th of July this year. I think it's real important that that because you are the D.C. provider, that you should get yourself out in public.
Absolutely.
And support advocacy.
So as states put medical marijuana on the ballot, so do states put adult use on the ballot as well. The Associated Press released an article, Alaska sets stage for our next fight over marijuana. Do you know Alaska? Alaska is known for its live and let live lifestyle, is posed to become the next battleground in which the push to legalize the recreational use of marijuana is posed. The state has a complicated history with the drug, with its highest court ruling nearly 40 years ago that adults have a constitutional right to possess and smoke marijuana for personal use in their own homes. In the late 1990s, Alaska became one of the first states to allow the use of pot for medicinal reasons. Then the pendulum swung in the other direction, with residents in 2004 rejecting a ballot effort to legalize recreational marijuana. In 2006, the state passed a law criminalizing possession of even small amounts of the drug, leaving the current state of affairs somewhat murky. So they have gone bing, bing, bing across the board with this. Supporters of recreational marijuana believe they have a real shot of success in Alaska. The state is reviewing their request to begin gathering signatures to get an initiative on next year's ballot. The proposal would make it legal for those 21 and older to use and possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana, though not in public. It also would set provisions for legal grow operations and establish an excise tax. So again, very similar to Colorado. It's really different from their 2004 ballot initiative, which would have allowed really, really broad scope legalization. It would have allowed adults 21 and older to use, grow, sell, or give away marijuana or hemp products without any penalty of law, without any parameters. The whole initiative, you can tell, is scaled down to be as palatable as possible, said one of the sponsors, Bill Parker. If the initiative application is accepted, backers will have until January before the next legislative session starts to gather more than 30,000 signatures required to qualify the measure for the primary ballot. That's got to be really challenging in a sparse populated
Well, that's
state.
why I was wondering if they had online petitioning that was acceptable by the government, because basic online petitions are nothing but statistics.
Yeah.
Statistics and demographics. And I'm just curious. How do you, what do you do? Get on a dog sled and go?
Right? You go to every single grocery store every single Sunday from now until January.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to iCannabis Radio. I'm Georgia, and we'll be right back.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706. Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On Grass. runongrass.com.
Welcome back. How's it going? So we were just talking a little bit about Alaska and crossing our figures that by 2016 we'll see something. Alaska will have moved forward with recreational legalization, but there are some other happy things. The Arizona Department of Health Services continues to approve license applications for medical marijuana dispensaries. Bloom Sky Train is the first in Phoenix to open. The state's health department has approved 16 dispensaries statewide. All 16 are open, with 2 more scheduled to open this week. Like I said, Blue Sky Train. That's hard for me to say for some reason. It doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
No, it doesn't.
I'm sorry. I keep saying it wrong. Bloom Sky Train. See, I can't even say it right. Bloom Sky Train is in Phoenix near the new city of Phoenix Sky Train Terminal. I don't know what that means, but anyway. So they're going to open Wednesday. They tried to open on 4/20. That's kind of trite, don't you think? I mean, I get it. That's a good day to...
They didn't bloom, I take it.
They did not bloom. It said, and I think this is a bunch of bull, but it said, not on their part, but on the Arizona Department of Health Services, but they had some kind of computer issue with the state stopping its 4/20 opening. But the executive director of Bloom Sky Train said the new dispensary is creating more than 30 jobs. That's pretty fantastic. And this is after November of 2010 when voters approved the Medical Marijuana Act in Arizona, and there are now more than 38,000 patients in Arizona. Fantastic. So that's pretty exciting. On a funny note, I mean, I think this is funny. So CNN Money has been doing a lot of articles on MMJ, and I can only imagine that it's because there is no other booming business. I mean, maybe genetically modified seeds and stuff from are the only other thing that is happening. But CNN Money did an article on security needs for medical marijuana centers. Now, Colorado, both statewide and local municipalities have really been very clear about the security requirements, about having cameras on all of the doors and all of the areas where product is weighed and growing and moving and all those kinds of things. And so a lot of the security has been dictated, but it all makes really good sense. And it's kind of funny because the article which came out today, titled "The Business of Pot: Legal Marijuana's Need for High Security." Do you see what they did there? Their need for
high security.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they talked about making sure that there are cameras and those kinds of things for the obvious burglaries that occur at dispensaries and grows. My personal experience, and I know I'm not alone in this, is that our cameras have been used more often for our neighborhood crimes than for anything at our store. I just had a police officer the end of last week, maybe Friday of last week, come and ask if he could see our camera views for a place across the street from us that was burglarized, not because of us. And so we caught a hit and run. Actually, a couple of hit and runs, one of which was on a motorcycle. Caught taggers tagging, neighborhood stuff. I mean, so it's not just about keeping the medical marijuana businesses secure. It actually is good for community safety as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do you know that when I came back from D.C. 2 years ago, when they first put the cameras on, I just made it a sign. And pulled up my bandana and walked in, and it just said, "Fuck you." And I walked up to the entryway camera, then the check-in camera, and then the dispensary camera. And I pulled it down to make my purchase. And then as I was leaving, I went to each camera on my way out, just wondering if they were actually watching.
Right. Well, we know now they weren't.
Yeah.
But this article talks about even though marijuana is now legal in Washington state, business is risky as ever. Without extensive security, a pot dispensary is nothing more than a giant target. A pound of weed goes for more than $2,000 wholesale, and federal pressure on banks forces growers and stores to rely almost entirely on cash, which is true. A robber who swipes the jars on display alone could take away $20,000 of product, plus whatever stacks of bills are behind the counter. Well, I don't know who keeps that many pounds in their store.
That too, and obviously Washington isn't doing what Colorado did, which requires that all dispensaries have a safe.
Yeah, well, this is saying that they would have that they would have 10 pounds just sitting right there in jars on display. I don't know why anyone would do that.
That neither do I.
It sounds like a really dumb
idea.
idea.
They must have mega strains too.
Right.
To have 10 pounds, Jesus.
It goes on to say a typical store has more than a dozen cameras, motion detectors, infrared sensors, and floodlights. Some even line the ceilings with tripwire to avoid rooftop burglars sawing their way in. At most dispensaries, no one gets in without passing by 3 doors, showing identification and presenting a doctor's note. This is in Washington, mind you. But the security is hard to maintain. Some store owners who use ADT, the nation's largest security provider, say the company has dropped them in recent months. ADT told CNN Money it won't, quote, sell security services to businesses engaged in the marijuana industry because it's still illegal under federal law. Well, I mean, it's... I know, right? You're right. You're lost, ADT bastards.
Hear that, home security folks that have grows at home? Don't use ADT.
They don't care about your product. And there's lots of small security companies that are happy to protect you. Kevin Griffin, founder of West Coast Wellness, said ADT dropped him without warning him in mid-April. He still has a silent panic alarm button Velcro strapped beneath the front desk, but it doesn't call anyone. Griffin blasts ADT saying they already knew what we were. We were completely transparent. It's not fair to put us in a jam and not give us any time to prepare. The security needs create an opportunity for startups like Canna Security, a Colorado company expanding in Washington. Its founder, Daniel Williams, recalls the video cameras that catch footage of what pot stores and growers are up against. And it just goes on a ton to talk about some funny little stories. Teenagers who rammed an Audi into a warehouse bursting through the door. They walk out having discovered that the marijuana plants they intended on stealing were actually moved somewhere the previous day. Then there came the cat burglar who cut a hole in the roof of another marijuana warehouse and rappelled down from the rooftop. After filling a duffel bag full of the stuff, he realized the doors were locked from the outside and he couldn't get back in to escape. I've heard that more often than I can possibly tell you, that people think that when they go into a grow that they're going to get pounds of processed, trimmed, manicured product, and you're not, and that it's just sitting out there, like it's just sitting on a table in jars labeled ready for you to take it. Williams stresses the losses to these businesses are no joke, and it's true. Demands for his services is on the rise, and there are lots of local companies that are more than happy to do so. But I bring this up, one, because it's interesting and kind of funny, but also because the ancillary businesses that have sprung up because of medical marijuana and soon to be because of recreational marijuana is fantastic. I mean, economically, it has helped a ton of people. And my last thing that I want to make sure that I talk about tonight is not people at all. I have a little dog story for you.
All right.
Cops train new dogs after marijuana legalization. New dogs are untrained to sniffing pot. This is another story out of Washington. Now that marijuana is legal in Washington state, police departments have a problem. Their drug-sniffing dogs haven't gotten the message. So they're actually now, when they train their drug dogs, they are not training them to sniff out pot. Hear, hear. No marinara.
And hopefully pressure cooker bombs.
Right. They've got some interesting things that they need to actually take care of. So they said that there was a concern that if a dog were to find a valuable piece of evidence because his sniffer encountered a legal amount of pot, all the evidence might be thrown out in court. So there's some other reasons why they're doing that as well. But so don't worry about any young drug dog. They're not out to sniff your pot. It's just the older ones. Since you mentioned pressure cooker bomb, I do have my weekly Boston update. Denver had a unity run sponsored by the Colorado Athletic Club. It was a 3-mile run downtown this evening on behalf of support of Boston, and I hope that people participated and it was wonderful. I'm very sorry that Gavin and I couldn't be there. We get our Boston Strong T-shirts in the mail tomorrow, and we will run with them proudly. Next week, I want to talk a little bit about Pot Cops. So I finally watched the series, and I liked it. It is a series about the marijuana enforcement in Humboldt County, California, and I'm not going to tell you too much other than I wanted to hate the show, and I wanted to be pissed off the whole time, and I couldn't be. Yeah, so I'll tell you about Pot Cops next week. Tomorrow, 6 to 8, Sex Pot Radio, Jenny Cush. Don't miss it, because they talk about sex and they talk about pot. Thursday, the Hemp Connoisseur from 4 to 5 p.m. Next week, Monday, In the Lab with Jennifer, and Jennifer Murray from Can Labs and Jill Amaro from ASA, as well as my show. It's the first Monday of the month, which means Glass Monday. Remember, Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I almost got Tim in trouble. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. is John Doe Radio. Want to thank our sponsors, Mile High Wellness, Nodo Urban Garden Supply, Cuffle, Collimore & Company, Edson Maton and Mats, Medical Marijuana of the Rockies, Medical Marijuana 101, and Run on Grass. My name is Georgia. You've been listening to iCannabis Radio, and I will be back next week. Thank you, Bill Shangalis.
Thank you, Georgia.